Hello, everyone. Just no one. Should probably do a little thingy here. Wait, we'll wait just a few minutes for people. Hi, how are you today, Lauren? You tell Skylar to get his butt in here if he wants to hear the rest of that story from yesterday. Or not yesterday, Friday. Someone was going to watch, but they don't have signal right now because I'm not at home. So I had to shoot her a message real quick. Hey, you ready? I know, stinks. I told her she could catch up. These are always posted after, like, raw footage, so, they automatically post. Well, someone else is here. Say hi in the chat if you're here. Um, so, we do want this to be interactive, so we wanna hear from you. Um, Now I forgot what I was saying. I forgot what I was saying because it happens sometimes. Just Oh, that's what I was saying. So they're always posted after as raw footage. I probably at some point will cut them up and post them that way also. Um, and what's the other thing I want to say? So you can always catch up. Um, We do want it to be audience participation though. So as soon as I get enough people to participate in the chat as we go, we'll do polls and stuff like that. So it'll be fun. It's fun. Um, so I'm going to jump into it since it's been more than 5 minutes. Uh, so this is the continuation of Friday's show. So if you haven't watched Friday's show, you should go back and watch that one. Um, this is from the subreddit Raised by Narcissists, and it's entitled "My Narcissistic Father Confiscated My First Car when I was 16, attempted to confiscate my second car as well, even though I was an adult by then, and my mother supported him through it all." Part two. So it says it's a rant. It's flared as rant bent. About a year after I moved out, my mother's old Vista Cruiser kicked the bucket. Not surprising, it was a 1960s car, from what I believe he said. And my parents sneakily showed up in the morning to steal my Caprice wagon in order to replace it. What the what? What? Please tell me this story is not true because this stuff is wild. Excuse me. They did not care what they were doing was wrong because in their minds, my things were their things, and the world should agree with them. They were quite blatant about their views on parenthood. My parents rushed into the trailer and ganged up on me before I was even out of bed. My father put his foot on my chest to keep me down while my mother looked for my keys. They one sidedly told me that they were taking the Caprice as their new car and that I was just a dumb kid who needed to know his place and to obey them like I used to. My father smugly said they were right, I was wrong. They were not right. That is theft. That is Grand Theft Auto, as a matter of fact. Um, so yeah, no, you don't get to steal your kid's car. It's a little windy today. You can see my fan back there going. So my father smugly said that they were right, I was wrong, and it would always be that way. They took my keys and tried to just walk away with them, while my father was telling me he would be expecting the title for the car when he next came back. I just yelled for my uncle to call the police. He hated my father even more than I did. Between the two of them, my father was unsurprisingly the golden child when they were growing up. My uncle took after his mother, while my old man took after his father. You'd never have been able to tell they were brothers by how different they looked. My uncle hated his family so much that he left home right after high school just to get away. He tried to go into the military, but medical problems kept him out. My paternal grandparents both died in the 80s, left my father their house, and my poor uncle got diddly squat. So he made his own way and worked at an engineering firm until his last year of life. Police came, but my father and mother had already absconded with my car. Even when told the police were coming, they still looked smug after they left. My father had an evil, crap eating grin to show me before diving off. My mother looked like a kid in a candy store, happily behind the wheel of my Caprice. She'd never had a car with AC before, so she was completely giddy about it. My parents were hard to find as they'd gone home with my car. My uncle and I went with the police to my parents' house, and the cops forced them to return my car. For some reason, the cops didn't arrest them, even though I really wanted them to, but made it clear they would if my car wasn't returned. Honestly, I think he probably could have gone to the police station and pressed charges. At least I hope that's how that works. My uncle confirmed many details as he could because he heard part of the incident when my parents stole my car from his driveway. My uncle told my old man to give it up and return the car because it was not going to go his way this time. The old man just refused and just had to lie to turn it into his word against mine situation. He told the police that I was trying to go back on a promise to give the car to my mother. I said he was lying. Then I brought up how my father stole my last car and how it was the reason I made sure not to register the Caprice in his name, but also keep the title far from him. My old man broke his composure and started roaring at me that I didn't own Jack and it was all his. That was more than enough for the cops to see the writing on the wall. They told my parents to just return my car. I showed them the title. It was in my name only, and that's what mattered. Yes, they've stolen multiple cars. This is the second car. My father ended up calling me a whiny little bitch, and threw my keys at me as hard as he could after prying them from my crying mother's hands, but somehow I managed to catch them without looking like I even really tried. That only seemed to make him angrier, and he stormed back into the house and turned on his stereo, which is what he did the last time, or when the kid left. My mother was practically wailing that I was taking the car back. She kept referring to it as her new car. It was not even a new car, it was an old car when he got it. I tried to say she needed more time than I did. I was screaming, "Why can't you just do this one thing for me?" Oh, she was screaming, "Why can't you just do this one thing for me? I need the car." But I refused to talk to her. She tried to block me from backing out, but the police took her by the arm and made her move out of the way. I could still hear her wails with the windows up if I drove off. I hope they don't try and steal this car again because that seems like the type of people these people are, stealing cars. The evening of that same day, my mother came over to see me and try one more time to make me give her the caprice. Why does she think this kid who doesn't live at home and has a job doesn't need a car? She tried to open the door of my trailer without knocking, then started pounding on it because it was locked. I opened the door and told her that she just wanted a free car, and but she wasn't getting mine. So she went and sat down on the hood of my Caprice and said she wasn't moving until I agreed to give it to her. I told her to go ahead and sit there and just went back to my trailer. Proper move. I just played Super Nintendo and didn't come back until morning. I half expected her to be still out there when I got up, but thankfully she was gone. My uncle said he watched her from the window and she sat on the Caprice crying loudly for about an hour before finally realizing I wasn't coming back. My father tried to fix the Vista Cruiser himself. I don't know what was wrong with it, but whatever he did to try and fix it made it catch fire and he tried to start it up. Oh my God. Oh, these people are finally getting a little tiny bit of karma in their lives. The fire department had to be called. My uncle told me my mother called him crying and begging him to at least let me borrow the Caprice. He laughed and told her it was my car, my decision, and hung up on her. Yes, she tried coming over to beg me again, but I didn't even open the door for her the second time and told her I don't care how much she begged. It was my car, and I would never give or loan it to her. She loudly sobbed, and then I heard my father yelling my name outside. I didn't go out to confront him and said through the door that I was armed, and if they tried to break that was uh, I didn't go out to confront him and said through the door that I was armed if they tried to break in. My uncle also called the cops. They showed up and trespassed my parents. They didn't have the guts to come back to my uncle's house again for months. And when they finally showed up again at my trailer, they confronted me with a demand that I started designated driving them to the bar and back like I used to. I told them to screw off and take a taxi. They ended up getting my mother's crazy best friend to do it for a while, and after a few months of that, caused them to eventually stop being friends. They eventually wore me down enough to agree, but they had to pay me for my time if I drove them, and the satisfaction I got from their bitter looks every time they were forced to hand me cash so they wouldn't have to run the risk of drunk driving was grand. After about a year of that, they stopped asking me and just took taxis. I'm surprised they I'm surprised they didn't just drive drunk because they seem like that type. The next vehicle I got was a little orange 70s beater. I don't remember what it was, but once she had it, she bitterly told me she didn't want my Caprice anymore. I could tell she was still fuming about it because she kept staring at the Caprice with want in her eyes. She loved wagon type cars for some reason, and I guess I have that trait too because most of my vehicles have been wagons. She always looked happy, but also jealous whenever she got to ride in my Caprice. She liked spreading out in the back seat like she was in a limo. I'm sure it was because to her it was the car that should have been hers. Orange cars, her orange cars, secret joke. Her orange cars, engine blue before long, and then had a trade of a hatchback. Yeah, I guess so. Now that I think about it, you all have one. Her orange car's engine blew up before long because my mother was always leadfoot and both her and my father were cheapskates. My mother ended up getting another Vista Cruiser. Not sure what year, mid 70s, I think. Then she started acting like my Caprice wasn't all that in a bag of chips anymore. But she still obviously pined for my car. Kind of in a kind of in that sort of way a kid pines for something they usually do when told they can't have something. Because of a word about the things my parents did to me getting out, it led to several nasty family I can't talk today. Because of word about the things my parents did to me getting out, it led to several nasty family confrontations over the years. In particular, our mid 90s family reunion. My mother repeatedly put on the waterworks to fish for sympathy when confronted, especially when it came to the car. She kept saying she kept saying she only did what she did at the time because she needed the Caprice, and even cried that the car was too much to ask to give to her because she birthed and raised me. One of her cousins actually slapped her and told her she was a horrid mother, and that if they'd known all the crap I went through as a child much sooner, they would have taken me away from my parents. That made my mother leave crying. Oh, I think she left wherever they were at crying. Okay. Not just that she was crying. My father used that as an excuse to lay into me and said I should give over the Caprice to my mother for all the pain and suffering I put her through. I just said nope over and over as my old man kept getting redder in the face until he looked like a matchstick. And he just walked out the moment he realized was staring and mocking him. The older I got, the less of his BS I took. It was actually fun seeing the repeated dawning awareness in his eyes whenever he couldn't make me do anything from him anymore as I got stronger and he got weaker with time. He was big, but he hardly exercised aside from his punching bag. I was a frequent visitor to the gym. Hate was a strong motivator to get into shape. Yeah, I think that's why my kids go to the gym. About 5 years after I bought my Caprice's junkyard engine was on its last legs. I had two choices: have a mechanic replace the engine with another junkyard V8 or just get another car. Well, the Caprice was getting pretty worn out, so so I did what I thought was a deal good idea at the time and traded it for a Yugo at a used car dealership. Yes, I know, bad idea. In case you were unaware, Yugos were famously lemons. But it was really cheap and I thought I'd save a lot on gas because it's a little tiny car. That car ended up being my biggest regret during the time I drove it. It was painfully slow, horribly cramped, no AC, and there were actually wires hanging out from under the central part of the dash. I was told it was made that way, if you believe it. I believe it. And things on it just wanted to break. It wasn't exactly a vehicle that got a lot of praise from people. I was actually laughed at a few times, mostly by teenagers. Needless to say, I got rid of the Yugo as soon as I could, and then I brought a Volvo wagon, which was much better and had great AC. I contemplated giving the Yugo to my mother as a joke, but some weird collector guy offered me $100 for it, so it wasn't that bad. Wow, a Yugo. When my mother saw the Volvo, it started the same mess over again. She practically lusted after that car and cried when I refused to let her drive it. My father came into My father tried to come in acting like a gorilla and demanding that I give my mother back what she wanted until I grabbed him by the shirt and told him to give me an excuse. He looked me in the eyes and backed down in defeat. My mother placed and my mother kept crying at him to turn around and put me in my place as they walked away. My mother then showed up at my place and demanded that I let her use the Volvo. I told her she should have known by then that she couldn't force me to do anything anymore, and she had another dramatic crying episode on the hood like she did with the Caprice. At that time, a cop showed up after a while. I don't know who called him, but my mother must have put on one hell of an act claiming I promised her the car because she got this guy really riled up. The cop came banging on my trailer door and told me to come out and apologize to her mother. I asked him what she told him. She apparently said I was a lying little crap who promised to give her a new car and then reneged. But then I told the cop, but then I told the guy everything in front of my mother, and the cop was mortified. My mother tried to butt in many times, but it didn't work. And by the time she was done, she glared daggers at both of us before leaving without a word. The Cop apologized and said my mother had just been so convincing. She'd never asked to drive the Volvo again. Sadly, in 1999, my uncle was diagnosed with lung cancer. Oh. He was a pack a day smoker and hated doctors. By the time he was diagnosed, he was already far gone, but he didn't seem to mind and chose not to seek any form of treatment other than painkillers. He wanted to go out on his own terms and barely lived long enough to celebrate the 2000 New Year. After his passing away, he left me everything he had, like his house, his savings. Boy, was my father steamed when he found out he got nothing at the will reading. Do they even really do will readings? I have never heard of anybody going to a will reading, only on TV. But he knew exactly why. His brother hated him. And my father wouldn't have a leg to stand on it if he tried to sue me anyway. He told me he didn't need my uncle's stuff anyway and refused to even mention it again. He was a king of Darvo and gaslighting. To him, if he didn't talk about it, it didn't happen. Darvo is a phenomenon that bullies do. Um, it's DARVO. It stands for deny, accuse, reverse victim, and offender. The mom's always crying, you're right. Always. I wonder if my eyes hurt all the time because I know when I cry, my eyes always hurt. As I grew older, my old man was less and less inclined to mess with me, especially by the time my uncle died. I became his spitting image and even bigger than he was in his prime by then, thanks to going to the gym often. I was ready to throw down and beat him in half a minute if he decided to try and force his will on me again, and he knew it. So he just resorted to mocking and gaslighting. Oh, you should have done better. Oh, that never happened, were the lines I heard from him so many times. I was far from the only person to call him out for that. That dad sounds like a winner. Like I said, I really hope this is not true. But it's so long, I have to believe it. The Cavalier my father took from me didn't even last the rest of the 90s. He treated that car terribly, and when it died, he just parked it as junk and replaced it with whatever was available in the area for cheap. He actually tried to offer to trade in the dead Cavalier back to me in exchange for my Caprice. He somehow thought I still had an attachment to that car. I laughed at him and left him fuming. He brought up several more times about how I should have traded my Caprice to him. But everyone he told the story to told him he was delusional if he thought that was fair. And then he'd flare up and say I should have just done it anyway. But instead, I was a disrespectful son who wouldn't give his parents what they deserved. Once I bought my Volvo, he started wanting to do that crap trade all over again. I pointed out to him that we'd done the same song and dance about that sort of thing for years, and then asked him if he had ever once gone to, gone his or my mother's way. And then asked him if it had ever once gone him or my mother's way, because it was obviously didn't, since they got neither my Caprice or my Volvo. My old man just looked at the ground and mumbled as he walked away. That was the last time he ever tried to demand a vehicle of mine. So I guess they didn't try to steal the Volvo, at least. My father has been dead and buried for years now. Even up until his final days, he was still a bitter narcissist who was unhappy his own son outdid him. He could never just be happy for me, not even when I got married in '02. He actually said at the reception, my wife was too good for me. Why did you invite them to your wedding? Dude. And years later, he went out of his way to rub it in my face until I got divorced in '09. Not that I cared. My ex was a cheating harlot, piling up the credit cards in my name. She was furious the divorce judge made her take most of those debts since she made them. Then she ran off with her affair partner as soon as the divorce was finalized, leaving me with the kids and half my retirement savings gone because she took it as a lump sum over alimony. Thankfully, my house was a pre-marriage asset, so she couldn't touch it. Her parents have disowned her and have been a big help to me. They're awesome grandparents to my kids, always have been, and they haven't even talked to my ex for around 14 years. Both my mother and father went through several more cheap cars, even used a police cruiser in which my father constantly talked about the Blues Brothers movies while he was driving it. And my mother obviously hated that I had the Volvo because it was reliable and lasted a long time. Eventually, my mother got her license revoked around 2017, and to my knowledge, she never got it back. Not that she could have driven anymore with her failing health. A relative who was speaking to my mother at the time told me all about it. The incident that finally got her license revoked involved a bus and a DUI. Ouch. She tried to drive through while a bus was stopped letting kids out. She nearly hit a kid, swerved, and drove into a ditch. She was clearly intoxicated and was arrested for driving under the influence. I told you they were the type. I told you they were the type to drunk drive. Called it. Even after sobering up, she managed for some time that it was all the fault of the bus driver and that she was just a little old lady out doing the grocery shopping. The bus driver was stopped and offloading children. Anyone who knows the rules of the road knows you can't pass a bus that's stopped while its lights are flashing. It wasn't too long after that both my parents had to be put into a care home because age had not been kind to them. Decades of heavy drinking, smoking, and casual drug use took its toll, especially on my father. He ended up on disability years before that due to his back becoming so bad he couldn't walk without a cane. I did not see him on his deathbed, but his last words about me were anything but kind. My mother was pretty much alone in her final years, as most of her side of the family cut her off long before the pandemic hit. She died of a stroke in a care home a couple of months ago. She had to be on oxygen to breathe properly. She basically had one foot in the grave already, so it didn't take much to fall in, but I was hard pressed to care about the torment I suffered in childhood by her hands. She spent years trying to reach out to both my kids any way she could, and they always rejected her. Even her final months, she was sending letters in the mail begging them to come see her. They wanted nothing to do with her or my father while they both lived. I they'd heard the stories of my past from me about other relatives and the way my parents treated me whenever they were around. They're adults now, making their own decisions, and they choose not to see my mother. Chose not to see my mother. My mother even tried reaching out to my ex-wife several times to try and make my kids talk to her, but that woman could care less. So now both my parents are dead and buried, and I feel nothing. There wasn't even anything left to inherit, would not that I'd even wanted it. All of my parents' assets were sold to pay their stay in a care home, and they hated it there. Wow. Wow, that is some story. That was so long, you guys. Both times it was so long. So yeah, treat your kids better and maybe you won't have to die in an old age home that you hate. Lesson. Lesson. This kid's lucky he didn't have a sibling because they would have probably been a golden child, to be honest. We're just gonna do a bunch of best of Redder updates today. Some of them are gonna come from the Flare origins of best of Redder update, so they're pretty old. This one's not though. This one's the one of the top ones from um September. So the first of every month I go through and I pick all the top like 15, 20 uh, posts in each of the threads that each of the subreddits that we like, and then I put them together kind of in order so they get better as the month goes on. And these are top ones from that Reddit thread. So the original post on this was September 16th, 2025. And it was originally posted in Ask Me UF. I've never heard of that. I don't know what that means. Does anyone know what that means? So it says, it's entitled, "Should I leave my boyfriend after he gave me a meal with shrimp even though I'm allergic and left me alone in the hospital?" See, I need my red flag again. I gotta get a red flag. I haven't had time to do that, but I want a red flag to wave around. Hi, everyone. I need some advice because I'm going through a situation that's overwhelming me. Thank you, Lauren. I'm 24 years old and I have been in a relationship for 3 years. I lived with my boyfriend for a year, and the past few weeks have been a bit of a fight after fight, especially after I started a night job. I studied for 6 years and he always knew I would do this job. He doesn't like it because we see each other less. I sleep during the day while he's working, but that's not even the point. I'm allergic to seafood. A lot of people are allergic to seafood. I think it's usually the iodine, but I don't know for sure. And I do have a friend that's allergic to any seafood that has iodine in it, so she can eat certain things, but she can't have any shellfish at all. I'm allergic to seafood. The other night, we were invited to a friend's house party where everyone had to bring a dish. My boyfriend bought some spring rolls. I was with my family. I went straight to him and asked if he made them, and he said yes, and I tasted them immediately. Okay. I tasted them and I immediately tasted them. Okay, that makes no sense. And I could tell there were shrimp in them. I asked him and he replied, "Oh yeah, I forgot to tell you." Yikes. Luckily, my friend who is allergic to peanuts had an epinephrine pen. Yeah, I know, but the sentence structure was really bad. Luckily, my friend who is allergic to peanuts had an epinephrine pen and gave it to me, but it wasn't enough. My throat started to swell. The ambulance came and I ended up in the hospital on an IV drip. When I came to, my best friend and parents were there, and I asked where my boyfriend was. There was an awkward silence, and they told me he went out for a drink with some friends. He said we'd call him when you left. You're responsible for her being in the hospital and you can't be bothered? Like, really? Like, more red flags. It really pissed me off. Yeah, it pisses me off too, girl. My best friend even told me he seemed completely oblivious to the whole thing. Thank you. Then I got home. We had an argument about his behavior. In a fit of anger, I said, "Do you did you try to kill me or something?" And he said, "Too bad it failed. At least you wouldn't be annoying me." Oh my goodness. No, don't apologize, dude. That would be too much. I went to my room to cry, letting out my hatred from the evening. We haven't spoken for 2 days. The atmosphere is icy. Not even an apology. Nothing. I tell myself I'm going to leave him and there's nothing left to save. But I have this doubt in the back of my mind, and I talked to my mother, who told me every relationship go through problems. Yeah, but every relationship, somebody doesn't try to kill you and not apologize, at least apologize for it, much less stay in the hospital so they know that you're gonna live or something. Ugh. I tell myself I'm going to leave him, that there's nothing left to say, but I have this doubt in the back of my mind. Oh, never mind. I already said that one. By now, we're talking about a problem that sent me to the hospital, and I finally find it really strange he never eats seafood, so why put it in the dish? Maybe I'm being paranoid. What do you think? Am I being dramatic or is his behavior serious? Relevant comments. Before we get into the relevant comments. So let me start by saying I'm sorry for what's happening to you, but I'm going to go with what the heck is this question? First of all, that's an accident after 3 years together is serious. Without your friend, you might be dead. Then what he tells you after, but seriously, love yourself and dump him. OOP. Thank you for this response. In fact, with everything that has happened in my head, I tell myself that maybe it's me who's being dramatic. I need to take a step back, etc. In short, I'm a little overwhelmed by the situation. but I'm going to leave him and that's it. God, phew. Nah, there's nothing to save. The same poster replied again, nah, there's nothing to save here. And excuse me, but your mom's completely out of it too. It's impossible to downplay what he did and said and her attitude when you were in the hospital. Yeah, what is with that mom? Like, yeah, people have their issues, but that's beyond the pale. Like, if somebody treated my daughter like that, I'd probably go off on him. I'd probably go off on him before he even left the hospital as she was unconscious. The guy who made the spring rolls himself put something you're allergic to it on purpose tells you, quote, taste it. You wake up, he's not there. Did he want to kill you? If we were in the US, you could have sued him for endangering you. You should even get you should even seriously consider it. This guy doesn't want what's best for you. Get away from this person ASAP. Who knows what he'll offer you next? Ditch him. Jenny Radish says, so obviously it's really serious and he seems like he's doing it on purpose. I just want to point out that uh, epi- adrenaline pens, EpiPens, are not enough and they're used to buy you time, but you still have to go to the hospital after using one. That is correct. If you have a serious allergy, you use the EpiPen and then you go to the ER. Anyway, ditch him, block him. I don't see him and don't see him alone if you have to get your stuff back. OOP. Yeah, I found out when I finished up at the hospital, unfortunately. The doctor told me that if my pills in the pen, maybe it wouldn't have been so bad. Still. Mini update, September 16th, 2025, same day. Thanks to everyone for your answers. I'm at work right now. I took time to read you, and you're confirming what I already knew deep down. Tomorrow, I'm going to get my stuff while he's at work, and I'm going to live with my sister while I find an apartment. And yes, my mom isn't a great role model. She is very old fashioned mentally and downplays these kinds of situations a lot. Thanks for your advice and messages. It gave me the courage to make a real decision, even if it stresses me out. But hey, I'll go with my brother to get my stuff just in case. You never know. Update September 17th, 2025, the next day. Update. I should. Up, okay. A quick update from this morning. I finished work at 8 a.m. A friend came with me to pick up my things. Normally, my boyfriend was supposed to be at work, but unfortunately, he was there. He told me he was sick and asked what I was doing. Of course, he's there. He knew she could show up. I calmly told him that I was coming to pick up my things and that it was over, that our relationship had to end. He just looked at me and asked my friend to leave so we could talk about how it was his place and I didn't and we he just looked at me and asked my friend to leave so we could just talk about how it was his place. We didn't want him there. I refused, reminding him that the apartment is also in my name. There were two of us on the lease. So he had the if I wanted, he had the right to stay. None of that makes any sense. I'm not sure that this person has English as a first language, so I'm not going to complain too much. For an hour, I emptied my things while listening to him call me every name under the sun, my friend and I. He repeatedly told him to speak with his mouth, but they were up against a wall. I grabbed everything and left. I'm not going to get legal advice to clarify some things because I am going to get legal advice to clarify some things because to answer all those who yes, he knew perfectly well that I was severely allergic to every restaurant. I spent time reading ingredients and asking questions, etc. For those who asked if it was in his character, no, he was always gentle and caring, so it's hard to understand what could have happened. But hey, human beings are complex. I have to remind myself not to dwell on this situation. Yes, I say that to reassure myself. Thank you again for everyone for your messages and support. That same original commenter said, I'm not going to say the name. It's funny, but I'm not going to say it. You did the right thing leaving and also getting someone to go with you and have witness and having to witness the insults plus your friend who saw him give you the shrimp rolls. Hang in there, block him everywhere and don't feel bad about the apartment and stuff and everything. The sooner you all cut ties, the better it is for you. And then Amazon Lily Impress said, "No, he's always been so sweet and caring. It's so hard to understand what could have happened." This part is even more freaky. I think a little investigation on him by the cops would be in order. The sweet personalities, but capable of that are the worst. So, um, OOP should look for him in the papers because he does not sound like a safe person. Wait, what? Okay, this is from the Flare Origins. Open that up. And it's just Flare Origins. Some of them are kind of silly, so I'm gonna have to, as we go through it, I'll have to decide whether I'm gonna read it or not. But this one is called The Beloved Saga, and it is where the name of the episode comes from. This is originally in Off My Chest Reddit thread entitled "Helped my wife transition and now she calls me some dyke and files for divorce. I never imagined I would end up married to a woman. When I met the person who is now my wife, who I am going to call Paula because that is not and has never been her real name, she was a man, who I'm going to call Paul for the same reasons. 2 years into dating, Paul told me he was bi. 2 years after we were married, Paul came out as trans and chose the name Paula for herself. I'm glad they're respecting pronouns. That's nice. I'm not going to pretend that Paula's transition was easy for her or me because it was not. I don't think it would be easy for anyone. Some people are more accepting than others, but the whole thing, we've seen it. My family's watched it. We know it's hard. There are people who will say it would not make the slightest bit of difference to them if their spouse or partner suddenly transitioned. And there are people who say, for whom that is even true. I am not one of them. But I've tried. God damn it. I am trying. I went to couples therapy with her. I went to her own therapy sessions when she asked. I got a therapist of my own. I read books. I reached out to other people with similar experiences. I stood by her when her family and people who had been friends pushed back and spoke out against my friends and my family's transphobic comments when they came up. I stared dumbly as three different therapists heard my story, tut-tutted, called me bigoted to my face, and said I needed to either get on board or get a divorce. So I got on board. We burned our wedding album because she couldn't bear to look at her past self in a tux. That's really sad. But yeah, you have to be either enthusiastically on board or that can be a deal breaker. I mean, if you're a straight person or if you're a cisgendered straight person, you didn't sign up to be um in a gay marriage basically, and that's what you're doing. If they're not a man and they're a woman and you're a woman, that's a gay relationship and not one that, not that there's any animosity or anything. It's just not your bag. It's not your bag. It's not your bag. And I did so, and so much more. I'm not saying that I want or expect any kind of kudos, and I do not want that for 1 second imagine that relative to other cis spouses of other trans people, I have done nothing noteworthy or had a more difficult than usual time of it, but I effing tried. And I did it because while the person I loved was no longer a man, she was still the person I loved. Exactly. And I did all of it while strangers and people I loved attacked me for being the transphobic one. If I ever expressed a moment of shock, a moment of hesitation or uncertainty, or a moment of, oh my God, this is a lot of change all at once. Can I please sit down for even 1 minute so I don't literally collapse from the panic attack I'm literally having right now? Yeah, I can understand that. That's understandable behavior. It's It's fine. Like, you have reactions to things. And then this week at 10:45 a.m. on Tuesday, there's a man in a suit and a Hitler haircut at my cubicle, handing me a stack of papers that say separation agreement on top. He's whisper shouting at me that I need to sign right now or there will be consequences. And he would not agree to take this to a private conference room away from the looky loos. I tell him I want to wait while I call my wife, and she lets out a long, exasperated sigh when she picks up. I tell her about Hitler Man, and she says he's legit with one sentence, does her level best to tear my heart out and throw it away. I just can't stay married to some effing dyke, she said. Wow. Wow. And OP's the problem. OP's the problem. Holy cow. Oh, excuse me. Second post was posted by the partner in legal advice and was deleted. That's okay. We got it. Title: Navigating Estates Tenancy Discrimination and Grief in North Carolina. North Carolina landlord tenant estates discrimination. Trigger warning suicide. Ooh. Preamble. My partner, masked non binary, and I, cis male, are poly. How is this the partner? Which I understand will be a deal breaker for many people here. If you are one of them, please move on and do not add to the dog pile that is our lives. Thank you to everyone for reading my late night ramblings and inquiries. My partner and I met our beloved, male to female, must have been trans male to female, almost a year ago. This Thursday would have been our 1 year anniversary, and by the time she had just started working on it, it was coming off her probationary period and was still shackled to her spouse, joyless cis female. Oh, oh, this is a poly partner of the wife, husband became wife in the okay. Wow. Wow. Okay, that's wild. We, partner beloved and I, proceeded carefully and discreetly with our courtship because for the first months, beloved was still wholly dependent on her spouse's insurance to cover prescriptions and procedures. But once beloved was secure and recovered from surgery and cleared to work from home full time, we started seriously considering our futures together. Beloved beloved is Paula. Ultimately agreed that the honest thing to do would be to divorce her spouse. So, with the help of some of Beloved's friends' partner and I, broke the news to her spouse, served her with papers, packed up her things in the nicest suitcase she had, and helped her move out and must move in. Oh, these people are not nice. Like, don't send your affair partners to break up with your spouse. Like, that's not cool. Beloved spouse refused to agree to our terms, refused to even sign the papers partner had hand delivered her. I am grateful we had so many people with us when she came to our house because I fear she would have turned violent without them. And those are just both from the first day. She hired a lawyer to fight the divorce, a no fault divorce at that, and demanded that Beloved buy her own house back from her, blood money. This was after she had abandoned it, let me remind you. What's that got to do with anything? Beloved spouse refused to budge, refused to settle, refused to negotiate, barely restrained her contempt in talking to us. And I'm sure it was no coincidence that whenever her lawyer dead named Beloved, she was very begrudgingly corrected him, as if to claim she was some woke AF princess of power, rather than the frigid soul who had hired a troglodyte to begin with. Of course, she's going to fight it. She deserves stuff from her marriage. A. And B. She was not opposed to the transition at all. So this person's lying. And of course, you're not going to be, you're going to be contemptible of someone who broke up your marriage. Like, what do people expect? Her virtual signaling did not end there, and as the months wore on, she held every mortgage payment she made above us as though it was some kind of moral victory or virtue signaling rather than her paying for the house she supposedly wanted to buy from her so desperately. Beloved did not handle the stress well at all. I suspect but cannot prove that this is what her spouse had intended all along. On Friday, May 1st, while partner and I were making another trip to move our things over from the old apartment, Beloved died by suicide. Paula committed suicide. Oh, that's so sad. Before her body was even scarcely cold, her spouse had swooped in, claimed the body, and had her burned. A week later, she snuck into our house and taped a notice to quit on our door, claiming that she was suddenly our landlord now and that we owed her rent for a house she had previously demanded we buy from her. While partner was on hold with legal aid, I checked the mail and saw an identical note in a certified mail envelope. We burned that one. It seemed fitting. My friend's partner and I found ourselves in terrifying limbo. Beloved truly despised her hateful spouse and absolutely intended to divorce her, but was never finalized because her spouse dragged her feet. Beloved clearly intended to change her will to provide for partner and me, but never lived to do it. We are now apparently, if legal aid is to be believed, tenants of Beloved's would-be ex, which cannot be legal or ethical given her animosity and prejudice toward us. We must either pay the exorbitant and serious rent she demands or be evicted from our own house. Not your house, hon. Sorry. It was never going to be your house. We are counting our small blessings that our state has put a moratorium on evictions. It isn't much, but we will take what crumbs the system throws our way. Sadly, it is due to expire on the first of the month, which mean one day we will have to face this woman in court and be her punching bags for all the world to see because she is still so furious at a woman who is already dead. That's so sad. Paula must have been really miserable. Questions. I hardly know where to start here, but given all the above, I suppose I have 5 questions in relative order of importance. 1. Do we have a cause of actions against beloved spouse for stealing and burning her body and keeping the remains from us, given that they were on an inevitable path to divorce, and beloved absolutely would not have wanted her spouse to be anywhere near her, as evidenced by the initiating divorce process? Well, just because you're getting a divorce doesn't mean necessarily that you want absolutely nothing to do with your old partner. It just means that you're not compatible. And beloved was having an affair with you. So until the divorce is final, they are still the spouse. 2, if beloved spouse is truly our landlord now, how can we prevent her from evicting us or charging us an unconscionable rent? Even granting that she somehow became a landlord, she should not honor the implicit contract we had with beloved, which stipulates that we may live in and use the house as we see fit. No, that's not how that works. Is it illegal to demand your tenants buy their own house from you? Uh, Not your house. And yes, in a divorce, it is legal to have one person buy the other person out on their house. 4, what would the best way for us to challenge and defeat beloved's will that given that she intended for us to live in our house and that her spouse abandoned it? How do you know that? Did she write down? Because unless she wrote that down, you would have no claim at all. Do we expose ourselves to retaliatory charges if we file an ethics claim against beloved spouse attorney for dead naming her? Yes. I don't know why the attorney would be dead naming her, but I don't think that's really a call for an ethics complaint. So apparently we need to read the comments on that. uh, Comment from a deleted Reddit user. Number 1, no, the marriage trumps whatever relationship you had. 2, you cannot. They evict you as per state law. 3, they make it a condition of continuing to rent to you. 4, none. The will is legally binding. 5, no, but this isn't going anywhere, especially if legal documents such as the will were still in the previous name. Oh, that's a good point. The will, if she had a will and she made it while she was still going by Paul, then dead naming her would go nowhere. That makes sense. That makes more sense. And beloved, morning beloved one, that's what they named themselves. Thank you for a response, some follow-ups. One, but she was in the process of getting divorced. The marriage was already dead and rotting in the sun. Doesn't matter. Two, beloved spouse actually couldn't evict us right now, even if she were a landlord, because of the statewide moratorium. We never signed any agreement with this moment, nor would we ever. She cannot unilaterally impose this kind of obligation on us. It isn't fair. Shut up. Three, that's absurd. Really? I guess I should count myself lucky. Nowhere else I've heard this ever lived has tried this. Four, what if we showed up in the courts of all the photos we took, letters we sent, declarations of love we made, and testified how much beloved despised her spouse? Couldn't that establish intent and at least null the old will? No, that's not how that works. Oh my gosh. Five, he dead named beloved while she was still alive, presenting as female and had undergone top surgery and in the same room with him. That sounds like a gross negligence to me, doesn't it? And the deleted lawyer says, one, that doesn't matter legally. Two, as soon as the moratorium is over, they can't evict you. Three, they can demand whatever they want. You doesn't have to buy it. You don't have to buy it. Four, no. Five, no. If we if we doesn't have to buy the house, then she can't really demand to buy it either. I would say it is gross negligence to call a woman by her dead name, and I hope the North Carolina State Bar agrees with us. This was downvoted, by the way. What if we showed beloved spouse exactly the same degree of courtesy and humanity she has shown us? How long could we drag this out? She'd run out of money at some point. And Aniba says she can sell the house and the new owner can evict you too. From a practical perspective, try to avoid an eviction on your rent. It can make life hard. Not so long as there's a moratorium. If she tries to sell her house, she's going to have a bad time. She can sell a house with tenants. You can't prevent that. You don't seem to be understanding. It is not your house. Full stop. No ifs, ands, or buts. She is title owner of the property, not you. OP says if anyone tries to buy a house that the so called owner has no right to sell, then his rightful owners are still making. No, you're not the rightful owner. What part of she abandoned? She didn't. This person is making me mad. Bug Hunter says evictions should resume early June 1st in North Carolina, and judges are not going favorably on people who use the moratorium as leverage. She got downvoted for she'll run out of money soon. She's got to. And Anobi? Neba? I think it's supposed to be Aneba. It's spelled like amoeba. Anoeba. I don't know. Thankfully, she has a large financial asset that you're temporarily occupying. You mean our house? Fat chance. God, I hate this person. Eba said it's her house, and yes, the moratorium will end. And at least in my jurisdiction, even with the moratorium, tenants can be evicted for bad actions, just not for non-payment of rent and other minor issues. A tenancy gives the tenant legal protections, but there are also obligations expected from the tenant. We never agreed to be anyone's tenants. We were invited here to live here, full stop. You were invited to live there by the person who no longer exists. So the person who still exists and owns the house didn't invite you to live there. And the Emperor Veneri says, and the person who invited you to live there, okay, spelled there, incorrect there. And the person who invited to live there has passed away, and the new owner is no longer offering that invitation, nor do they have to. You are tenants by virtue of living in the house that someone else owns. whether you pay rent or not. You are a month-to-month tenant because you have no lease. If you don't get this through your head and act accordingly, you're going to be evicted and unable to rent anything but total trash for years because of that. And Aniba says, the person who invited you to live with them is dead. The dead have mechanisms for passing on such invitations after death, wills, trusts, etc. But none exist in this case. The invitation has become moot. As you were invited by a previous owner, you are now disinvited by the current one. Yeah, they just do not listen. Veneri, 1, no. 2, she is your landlord. If you don't like that, you move. You have no contract, so you're month-to-month tenant. 3, it can be legal to say buy the house or get evicted so I can sell it. 4, you don't. 5, that's not ethics complaint that will go anywhere. 6, dear Lord, please condense this because it's borderline unreasonable. Unreadable. Bug hunter, no. Unless her will specifically designated how the body should be treated, the spouse decides. They are the spouse until the divorce is final. Since you're not in the will, it's likely you have no cause. 2, you can't. The only contract that is binding is a written contract. You have your state's month-to-month tenant protections, and that's it. 3, so long as you both agree to the terms, sure. 4, you're not going to. At the end of the day, it was her responsibility to keep up an updated will. 5, if she did not legally change her name, then this would be fruitless, as legal documents are going to use their legal name. If she legally changed her name, then you should tell the judge, tell them that her legal name at the time of death was X. I want to take a moment to point out that this has zero to do with being poly or trans or anything. This kind of thing happens quite often where somebody's life changes greatly, but failure to update the will leaves everything in chaos. That is true. That's true. It has nothing to do with their relationship or anything. All those people are wild. Oh, is there another? No, that's it. That's the only update, I guess. Oh, third post. Nope, here it is. Third post was posted by the wife and off my chest. I finally have my house back, but my life will never be back to normal. 8.5 months ago, my wife sent one of the men she'd been cheating on with to my job with an illegal divorce decree to sign. An illegal divorce decree? I mean, maybe. I don't know. That same night, the rest of her harem threw me out of my house and moved themselves in. 5 months ago, she offed herself. And the 2 dipshits in chief who made themselves home in my house refused to leave, claiming the house was theirs. At the advice of my lawyer, I put on a magic hat that said I was a landlord, and they were their month-to-month tenants who wouldn't pay rent and did the song and dance routine of evicting people from my house. This was right around the time my state implemented a moratorium on evictions. So now, in addition to being the kind of a-hole that would evict someone, I was the kind of a-hole that had to have laws passed keeping me from doing harm. And the dipshits in my house revealed that. They were living for free in my house that I was paying the mortgage for, sending me regular death threats while they had not even finished moving in all of their stuff from their old apartment. I was living in an unfurnished 1 bedroom and sleeping on a pile of laundry because between all of the current and new expenses, I couldn't afford a mattress. But I was that bitch and that dyke and the evil capitalist. And I wanted them saying that or making threats either. It was their friends and family, people who I thought had been my friends, randomly looky-loos, who saw their social media posts about it, and every now and then a garden variety a-hole who was passing by. I cannot begin to describe how much it effed me up to have an eviction under my belt during a pandemic as the evictor. I cannot begin to describe how much it effed me up knowing the only way I could enforce the eviction order would be through calling the cops after George Floyd or seeing the damage those 2 had done to my home or the utter show that actually getting them physically out of the house turned into. I have my house back. People who took it from me are gone now. Things are not and never will be back to normal. And in the end, it most certainly won't have been worth it. But this was the outcome that would have hurt me the least. Top comment is that second post was ridiculously insufferable. And somebody replied to that. I also love how they said she wants the house back she abandoned while literally admitting earlier in the post they kicked her out without notice. Second post comments are good, is insufferable, and stuff of legitimate legal nightmares. I wouldn't have been long before Sovereign Citizen came into it. Oh, wow. Wow. That is a saga. I think that's called the saga, wasn't it? The Saga of the Beloved. Yeah, the Beloved Saga. Interesting. Wow. Um, I don't even know which one that was. All right, it's been an hour. My voice is starting to hurt, or my throat's starting to hurt. So I think that's where we will leave that. Um, yeah, not many, not many posts read, but definitely long and interesting posts. Um, I think I'm going to be on tomorrow at the regular time. Thank you for joining me. Um, remember, don't gossip about your friends. Gossip about these people who try to kick people out of their own houses. Craziness. Craziness. Bye, biddies. Love you.